Testing. Fantastic. Looks like everything is working. You should be able to hear and see me. Perfect. All right, and you should be able to see the PowerPoint over here. If something isn't working, if your audio or your video is not working, just let me know. Send me a message or an email, and I will try to fix it. So today we're going to talk about diphthongs, English diphthongs, how to identify and pronounce them properly. So first, what are diphthongs? A diphthong is a vowel combination where you have two vowels, but it's one syllable. Okay? And this can be kind of challenging if you grew up speaking something like Spanish, where it's more phonetic than English. English has 8 different diphthong combinations, and some sources might say more or fewer, so don't be too surprised if you see a different video or a different post that says a different number. But we're going to break it down into 8 today. And I want to say real quick that Spanish does also have diphthongs. For example, cuerpo, that U and that E, cuerpo, they are pronounced more distinctly than they would be in English. It's cuerpo. However, that's still two vowels with one sound, or one syllable rather. Or in ciudad, ciudad, the I and the U, or EU, are pronounced distinctly, but it's still one syllable, ciudad. So Spanish also has diphthongs. So this is a skill that you already have. You just got to learn the English version. So let's look at the first one. This first diphthong is ow, and it's usually spelled with an OU or an OW, or occasionally just an O. Examples include town, clown, round, thousand, and outfit. Outfit. So this sound is the same sound you might make if you were walking across your floor and you accidentally stubbed your toe. You might say, ow! It's kind of this big, broad sound that starts in the back of your mouth and comes out to the front. Ow! Ow! So when we see this word, which in Spanish is Puebla, in Spanish we say Puebla, in English we say town. It's not tone or tone or tune, it's town. Own. The second diphthong I is spelled in a lot of different ways. So you're going to just have to learn through context and practice, but the most common spellings to look out for are IGH, IE, or sometimes just an I or a Y. Examples include sky, cry, island, bright, and depending on your accent, this sound can sound the same as the first person pronoun I, but not in every accent. In my accent, it does sound the same. I am William. I am a teacher. Sky, cry, same sound. The next diphthong is oi, and this is perhaps the most difficult, not just for English language learners, but for native speakers as well. And examples, it's spelled with an OI or an OY most often. And examples include the words oil or toy, employ, or annoy. And this diphthong changes considerably depending on your accent. Even native English speakers, if they're from different parts of the United States or from different English-speaking countries, they might pronounce this differently. For example, you can often tell where somebody is from based on how they say the word oil. So for example, with what we sometimes call a neutral American accent, this diphthong is oi, oi, oil, oil, oil. You kind of hear the subtle E in the middle between the O and the O of the L, oil. But somebody from the deep south might say ol, ol. So the diphthong is still there, but instead of oi, it's o, o. It's a much subtler, flatter sound in the middle. Ol, tor, implore, annoy. It's not OE, it's OA. So just be cognizant of that. And because this one is so difficult, practice, 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 but don't stress out about it too much. The next one is O, O, and it's most commonly spelled with an O, an OW, or an OA. And examples include slow, go, road, and no. And it's not the same as that short, strong O sound. If you grew up speaking a language like Japanese or Chinese, you might be familiar with that O sound, a very quick, strong, short vowel sound. But with this diphthong in English, it's not just O, there's a very subtle ooh, a very subtle, soft, long vowel sound after that strong, short vowel sound. So, for example, we don't say slow, we say slow. Oh, you can kind of hear it drop off a little bit and trail off gradually instead of just cutting off. So, not O, but O. This next diphthong is A, and it is commonly spelled with an AY, an AI, or sometimes just an E. The letter E in English can do a lot of different things, make a lot of different sounds, so keep an eye out for it. Examples of this diphthong include stay, play, obey, and display. And this sound is very similar to the sound that the letter E makes in Spanish. For example, in simple, that A sound. But many Americans put a subtle E at the end of the sound. So it's not just A, it's A. So some Americans, depending on your accent, you won't say stay, you'll say stay. You can kind of hear the vowel drag out just a little bit. Instead of play, it's play. Instead of obey, it's obey. You can kind of hear the sound draw out a little bit. For example, I taught my dog to stay, play, and obey. If you listen closely, you can hear the A, that kind of trailing off at the end. This next diphthong we call U, and this is pretty challenging for many Spanish speakers and can even be challenging for English speakers across different accents. It is commonly spelled with just a single U, but you can also find it with a UE, an EU, or an EW. Examples include use, music, or resume. So it's not us or music or resume, it's use. There's kind of a y sound coming up at the front. Use, music, resume. In some people's accents, they'll also say tune or student with that accent. That's not how I say it. I would say tune or student with an oo sound. I would not use the u diphthong, but some people will, depending on where they're from. And what's helpful to remember is that this diphthong sounds just like the second person pronoun you. So instead of music or music, music. Think about someone pointing at you. This diphthong is E, E, usually spelled with a double E or an EA, and sometimes just a single E, although we're going to see there are other rarer spellings as well. Examples of the E diphthong include dear, ear, serious, or peer. So this word here, this third word, it's not serious, serious, serious. And this is a long sound. You have to kind of stretch it out a little bit. It goes from E to kind of a soft ear. Did you hear she saw a deer by the pier? It's and then usually is followed by an R sound. So one more time, deer, ear, serious, or peer. And this next diphthong is very similar. We call it the air diphthong. This diphthong is usually spelled with an AI, an EA, or sometimes just an A spelling, and is often followed by the letter R. In fact, I'm going to say almost always is followed by the letter R. Examples include air, where, there, as in the possessive pronoun, or hair. And this sounds very similar to the diphthong we just talked about, but instead of an E, which trails off into an sound, this is A, which trails off into an sound. So deer, it's ear, but with this diphthong, air, where, it's an sound, kind of starts more in the back of your mouth and then moves forward. Very good. All right, guys, that was all 8 of the common English diphthong combinations. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you do have any questions, you can either email me, message me in our group chat on WhatsApp, or write them down and bring them to class. I'll see you guys next class.